Hello and welcome to another episode of the Thom and Joe Show. I'm Joe.
I'm Tom. It's 2023, everybody! We made it!
We made it, and it took us a month to get this recording, but we've been
Yeah.
busy.
We are, we are recording on the... Well, I think it's the 8th of February. This is our first episode of the year.
Yeah,
We are very fast coming up to 3 years of this, I believe.
yeah. We will have more episodes coming up real fast. We're recording one next week, in fact. So
Yes, indeed. We'll reveal all at the end of the episode, because of course we will.
yeah, of course we will. But today we have Princess Princpal, or as my
Yes.
journalism 202 professor would say, she's your Princpal, because copywriting or copy checking, and Principal, principal, all that fun stuff.
Mm.
And this was a show I suggested not only to get more stuff from the Sentai Filmworks sale off the list that I've had sitting around, but also it was a show I decided to check out in 2020 when we were all in lockdown. We all needed stuff to do. And I thought, oh, this has music by Yuki Kajiura, who I like. And I've heard good things about it, and it seems like a lot of fun. And then I watched the first episode, and it's really good, but also it is not what I expected at all.
I think when we were building up to do this episode, I think you said you'd thought about making this one of our first episodes, which should have been interesting, but we made it. We made it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the Atlantic Ocean divides us, so I didn't watch you experience the first episode.
Yeah. So let's just talk a little bit about the background of this series, such that it is. This is a series by a company I don't think we've talked about up to date, which is 3 Hertz Inc. Known as Studio Hertz, also known as Studio 3 Hertz. They are mostly famous for doing a Sword Art Online spin-off. The second season of Devil is the Part-Timer, which was originally animated by White Fox. They got a series coming out soon, which is about what appears to be manly men doing working stuff called the Marginal Service. They're a reasonably recent newcomer to anime. They've done a few bits and pieces. This is probably one of the more famous series. They're also doing, like, obviously we'll come on to mention, like, spin-offs from this. They're otherwise most famous for doing stuff for video games. And I noticed, Joe, there are 2 Legend of Hero games on their animation.
Yeah, Cold Steel 3 and Cold Steel 4. So I'm a lot more familiar with these people than I thought I was, because the spinoff they did was Gun Gale Online, which was a novel series. Yeah, Gun Gale Online is actually really good, and you want to know why?
Okay.
Because it is written by the author of Kino's Journey, who puts himself...
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Who puts himself in the storyline as this rich billionaire.
That's what it does.
Yeah. So when you watch it, and there's the rich billionaire that's kind of in the background, that's supposed to be the author.
Yeah, so, I mean, is that the one with the girl who dresses mostly in pink with the gun?
Yeah. Yes.
As opposed to the other girl with the gun in Sword Art Online, whose name escapes me. Yeah. On the other hand, on the other side of this is a studio called Actas. They are currently part of Bandai Namco Filmworks, which is, a big conglomerate. They are most famous for doing several Transformers series, 3 SMT series, Girls und Panzer, basically this, and yeah, that's this, and some Idolmaster animation sort of stuff. So yeah, Girls and Panzer is their real big money spinner. That's the only series apart from this I've actually heard on here, apart from the Transformers series. Yeah. This is directed by Masakai Tachibana, who doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
He doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but you know where he came from?
Oh no. Where did he come from, Joe?
He came from B-Train.
Oh no, not again.
Well, I don't know if he came from B-Train, but he's definitely been through it. If you look up, he directed a few episodes of Noir, and he's very big on storyboarding and key animator and something like that. So he came from that system. He's also worked on some storyboards for Eva 2.0, You Cannot Advance, and
Attack on Titan Season 3.
And Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, he storyboarded and episode directed. So he's been around, but he how Laid Back Camp was made by a subsidiary of B-Train. Now we have a director, and
the writer for this is Ichirō Ōkouchi, who he has done a lot.
Yeah.
This is our big gun of the group. He co-wrote Code Geass, which checks out. There are moments of this which do feel this guy has got a real thing about British settings. He's got on his list. So he wrote part of Turn A Gundam, some of Wolf's Rain, some of Eureka 7. Came up with alongside Goro Taniguchi with the story and main plot of both seasons of Code Geass. Essentially co-wrote Guilty Crown and Valve Lava the River Raid. This guy really likes his mecha anime. And directed the Black Butler film by the look of it. Yeah. Oh, and wrote the scripts for all 3 of the Berserk films.
For the Golden Arc.
Yeah. He's currently very busy writing a certain series called Mobile Suit Gundam The Witch of Mercury.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's the writer of Witch of Mercury, which checks out because he wrote several Utena novels. Yeah, so this guy is, extremely hot property at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I guess where should we start with this? What is Princess Principal about, Joe?
You would think it's about a princess who runs a school? No.
Yeah.
No. We're not gonna. It all has to go back to the first episode, and it's kind of spoiling the experience a little bit to describe it, but otherwise we can't talk about the series. Yeah. So I would recommend you watch the first episode and come back.
Yep. We'll wait.
We'll wait. So it's in London, but it's not our London.
So not my London.
No, it's not your London. There is a country called Albion, the land of Fable. No, it has nothing to do with the game Fable. It's just they share the name. But
West Bromwich.
So there was a revolution between the royalty and the Commonwealth, and they had a war, and then London separated between East and West London, and they put up a wall. So it's like if there was a Berlin Wall in London, except it separates the people who's the royalty and just your usual democratic government.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the queen in this is very it's just Queen Victoria.
Yeah.
It's not like no, it's literally Queen Victoria.
Yeah, it's very Victorian London, except that they've gone through a steampunk revolution with this new material that can, cause used with anti-gravity and other steampunk stuff.
Yep. They also cars, so it's sort of like I hesitate to compare it to Last Exile because Last Exile's tech is more advanced than this, but it is like that sort of mixture of sort of it has elements of steampunk. This thing goes, your oldie steam, tubing and stuff like that. But it does have elements of like diesel punk as well. So it's sort of like, so it's like it's this melding, and it's set somewhere in like the 1920s inverted commas.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's sort of timeless in a way.
Century. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Last Exile, it's an entirely different world based on entirely different things, and it was everybody slammed their heads together so hard to the point where Rang Murata had to like change the entire world building after they designed Lavi with you could only do her hair with electric shears. Yeah. So he had to. This isn't so much that. It wants to be just steampunk London. We're not going to pick a specific time it feels like after World War II, but it's not after World War II. It's more like the early 1900s and the Industrial Revolution. We got airships, and there are cars, but they have to drive on these giant overpasses.
Yeah. It does a lot of its stuff more for the aesthetic than, world building, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
I feel it's the one sort of, compared to like a lot of the world building that, Ichirō Ōkouchi has done in previous series, it is like a little bit lacking in the animated series at least. I should point out neither of us have. I don't know if you've seen the films, but I certainly haven't seen the films.
This is just the series. We have not seen any of the movies yet. So, so it's just they wanted London and they wanted the aesthetics, but they didn't want Anglophiles picking them apart. So they just made this a fictional London, even though they're using the Thames and a lot of other familiar names.
Absolutely. Like, as a Brit watching this, it's like, hey, that's that. And, like, at one point, one of our characters does a concert. I go, that's literally the Royal Albert Hall because I recognize that organ. It's... There's some research in it, and, like, one of the, but at the same time, it's like, no, this isn't your London. This is, this is Albion. We're not in, I don't think it even gets called London. Oh, it does get called London, but obviously it's like, but like this does not look like, there are elements of this where it goes, this is just basically generic British, Victoriana.
Yeah. So we get into the plot, and it should be noted that the plot goes out of order. From
it does that
from the timeline.
It does that Tarantino sort of thing of going, we're going to present you, or things in dramatic order rather than chronological order.
So it just gives you a blast of. The first episode is just giving you a big blast of what this series is about before it goes back and explains. So we meet our crew, who mainly consists of Ange, who is, I think, both of our favorite characters, but she is the most spy out of this group because they're all spies. This is not actually about the school. This is they are a group of 4 spies, or is it 5?
4, 2, 5.
It's 5.
We'll get to the general characters in this. So Angie is voiced by, now this is obviously something we got to talk about because the voice actress for Angie has now in the series essentially retired from voice acting, which is a shame because she's really good in this. Like it's Ayaka Imamura, who is mostly, well, this is basically her big role.
Yeah. A lot of the actors in this on both ends, Japanese and English,
Mm,
are a lot of new up and comers.
mm,
Yeah, I tried looking up a lot of them, and they didn't have
yeah.
a whole lot of credits to their name, or they weren't
No.
like the ones that you usually would expect, where they have 100 roles, and you have to
Mm,
find like the 2 or 3 they're known for. But
mm-hmm.
um, a lot of this is a lot of newcomers, and you know, besides the writer, just everybody feels like they haven't been big as directors, they haven't been
Mm.
big as anything else. So, which also doubles the surprise because, uh, did we talk about this off camera that we, or not off camera, but off mic, that this is not I kept thinking this was based on a series of light novels or something
No,
like that, but
it is not. It is
it is not based on
entirely
anything.
no.
No.
Which is
Uh,
no.
which
Yeah.
explains a few things and doesn't explain a few things, but so they're spies for the Commonwealth of
Mm-hmm.
England, which is the non-royalty part of England, and they're on the royalty side of England, and they're headed up by Charlotte, who is the princess of,
Yeah.
uh, who is acting as spy, and they're in this Operation Changeling, which they are trying to use the princess as a, uh, you know, cover for their
Yeah.
operations. And this first case seems, pretty basic. It is they have to get this guy who wants to defect to the Commonwealth out of the royalty of London. So that
Mm-hmm.
and it seems pretty fun. Most of this is just going through a case and introducing the characters, especially Ange and how she operates. Why she is the most important character is some stuff we'll talk about later,
Yep.
but because she is a complete anomaly to everyone, and maybe including herself, because she rarely seems to tell the truth, and
Hmm.
she is always in the spy game of uh, just analyzing people, seeing through lies, and just kind of
Yeah.
acting as this individual who was, I don't want to say she's used as, she feels like she's just a tool doing her duty, but
She does seem detached from like a lot of the there is so this first case sort of basically centers around a figure called Eric, who is a scientist from the royal side, and essentially he's like he essentially gets kidnapped, and this is like the first. And the action in this is really good. We need to say it before we talk about
yeah,
the action. The action is just it's got a. I mean, the viscerality of some of the action really surprised me. I mean, there's an initial sort of like, wait, this isn't cute girls doing cute stuff at school, and then it's like, did that guy just is that blood?
yeah. Um, not not to put a, we're probably gonna have to spoil the first episode a little bit, but it's just
Mm,
like it is seriously a moody show, and it has
mm,
like shadowy, almost noirish
mm,
atmospheres in the first episode.
yeah.
It gets lighter and more standard as it goes along,
Mm-hmm.
but they really wanted to show off the animation and the atmosphere in the first episode. And they have the Yuki Kajiura score. It's kind of a standard Yuki Kajiura score, but she always adds a few little things. And this time she
Mm,
adds like a xylophone or a vibraphone or something like that to it
mm-hmm.
to I mean, the soundtrack is called like the fog of London or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that they use the xylophone to indicate like the airy night atmosphere and the fog of London. So
Mm-hmm.
um, it it does that, and it's like, and there's not like the light part of it, and then we get to the end of the first episode, and this is when during the pandemic, I had to walk away from this series because it's like, this is not what I expected, and this is probably not what I need right now, because
Yeah.
it turns out the defector is actually just trying to figure out what the spy lines for the Commonwealth are, and to expose them and give them to uh, other people. But it's for the sake of helping someone, for because this is the only way you can get the money to help his loved one. But at the end, it's just Ange and him, and Ange has it all figured out. And the big moment is, "Are you going to shoot me?" And then she says, "No," and then shoots him. No, shoots him. No, shoots him.
Yeah,
And
just like,
then he falls over dead, and it's like the blood is all there, and he's bleeding out on the floor. So this is whatever the title Princess Principal seems to suggest to you. This is not that series.
Nope. The closest thing I would describe it as is, it's like, how familiar are you with the novels of John LeCarre, Joe?
I've read one. I've watched a couple of the movies.
Yeah, it's basically like someone took a magical girl series and go, yeah, now imagine that John LeCarre writes this in early 20th century England. Is the vibe I feel. You know, it has that intricacy of, you never know exactly who is on your side. You know, one wrong move and you're dead. You know, we are ghosts playing games against other ghosts for information, and we're spies. Which seems to come up in like every episode. That seems to be like by the way, we're spies.
Although, sometimes you have to like just give them credit for the concept. Just because Ange has this like ball of, the technological thing. Where she can,
I think Cavarite.
Yeah. They explain it in a couple episodes, and then it just goes away for the word,
it's the green thing.
Yeah, it's the green thing. It's a device in which they can do steampunk things, and she has a special one where she can do anti-grav stuff, float around, stop herself from falling, and some other things that the plot requires her to. What I would say is that this follows a very standard television series writing. Like, every little thing is a piece of the story, but they all feel like individual episodes, so they don't affect each other as much. There's not this emotional tension, or this like, I don't know. It's going to be a weird comparison, but it's like House MD, where there's some serious shit that happens, and it feels like everything's going to shake up the story and change it, but by the time all that hurricane is done, it's snapped back and they are back to normal.
Yeah,
And
it does have that sort of feeling of sort of case of the week, and then once that case is done, it's like, right, back to what we were doing, which is having tea and planning this and doing that, and it's like, yeah, but this just happened.
Yeah, this just happened, and we'll get onto this in a little bit, because there's some serious shit that happens, and and they just get over it. I mean, one, because it's not in chronological order; it's just going in. It's just a throughway through the plot and understanding. Because this really feels like the first few episodes are like the first few episodes in any series, which describes how they get together and the characters' backstories. Which, leads way to the second episode, which explains how this group got together. And there are two spies, Dorothy and Ange, who are led by Control, who are the secret Commonwealth people operating in Royal London. And they have this new plan Operation Changeling to turn Princess Charlotte into their asset. And so they go to this party and they're to infiltrate it. And, you know, there's a lot of spy games here and there. And then it seems Charlotte is way too onto them. She figures out everything. But what we find out is that Ange and Charlotte are not strangers.
Nope.
Nope, they are childhood friends. And
Yep.
and
Yeah, that whole episode is very, very good. It does sort of basically start to flesh. This is the thing, like Ange as a character is deeper than that first episode lets on. There's a lot of like sense to her that, you know, there is more beneath the surface than this sort of slightly detached, slightly not nihilistic, but, you know, there's a sense of her being very much what her superiors and what her handlers need her to be. And
yes.
It's like, you know, she occasionally talks about the Black Lizard Planet, and it's like, and throughout the first episode, I was messaging you going, okay, is the Black Lizard Planet what she's doing the truth? Is this something more than this? I don't know. We'll have to.
And I couldn't tell you because I hadn't been through like more than 3 or 4 episodes.
Yeah.
But it's revealed Ange and Charlotte are childhood friends.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew everything because Ange left her a note telling her, and that they had made a promise to meet again after the revolution because they got separated, and then they put up the wall. So, you know, getting her to become an asset wasn't very hard. So they decided to work out of the upper class school she goes to, and I don't think she's actually the principal of the school. She's just a student there.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the principal of this, and they don't spend a whole lot of time in the school, and there are a couple episodes to, you know, make sure they cover that they do go to school, and that is their and dealing with that. But
yeah. It's more a backdrop than a setting in the majority of the series. And, you know, there's occasional espionage within the school. I think there's like one episode where they sort of basically go, oh yeah, the person we're actually after, they're actually in the school. But, you know, it's a means to an end a lot of the time, and it's like there is no principal in this, and there's certainly a princess.
And
so
also,
Oh.
And during that, we do meet up with also Beatrice, who is Charlotte's lady-in-waiting, and she joins the group because she has a weird special ability. Her father did bad experiments on her with steampunk stuff, and now she has the throat of steampunk that can be altered to whatever voice she would like, or whatever sound she would like.
Mm-hmm.
So she's one of, so she becomes an asset.
Yeah, it's like the if the series has like one sort of weird recurring thing, it's parents are really shit, guys.
Yeah,
like terrible abusive parents.
Mm-hmm.
It's a commonality.
Yeah. And they also use it to, like, why these dyads of people get together the way they do. Because there's Dorothy, who is the spy who went through the quote-unquote farm with Ange, but they're not super good friends. I mean, they have a repartee with each other, but Dorothy becomes much more of a friend with Beatrice, and that's because Dorothy also was abused by her father, and yet those kind of interweave between each other on one episode. And I don't know. We'll get there when we describe the plot, but
precisely.
because there's Ange and Charlotte, who are childhood friends, and then there's Beatrice and Dorothy, and then we have God, why do I keep forgetting her name? Chisei.
Chisei, the Japanese exchange student.
Yeah.
Who's definitely not a spy. Definitely not.
Who's definitely not a spy, especially because she works. I shouldn't say she works for it. I mean, she does, but her father is the diplomat to Japan for, London. So
yeah.
So we get through all that.
Is it necessarily her father? I thought it was like more of her, like, head of her clan or something. I mean,
oh yeah,
we'll get to Chisei's father later. He is also problematic.
Yeah, and it's I watched half of this on the dub, the dub is actually really good. It actually has they use British accents, which wasn't as bad as Sentai, or I should say, when it was ADV's first. I'm trying to think if it was the first ever dub they did was Nadia the Secret of Blue Water, where they had not only had a child actor, but they had him do a French accent, which he was not French, and yeah, that did not work out well because they were just starting out in this business and they didn't know. But I don't know if you watched the dub. You probably didn't.
I watched it in Japanese.
Okay. So
which got very confusing with Chisei, because it's like, obviously, she is a Japanese character speaking Japanese in a show where everybody speaks Japanese.
Yeah. So, but in the dub, they handle it fairly well. Rachel Messer, I don't know her history. I mean, it's a little weird having, because it feels like the performance sometimes feels like it goes to the cliche of how a Japanese person would talk English and stuff like that. They do the best with it. I would not put it on Rachel Messer, who does a good performance with what she's given. I just would like maybe find somebody who is a native Japanese person who's been in America for a while and have them do it. But
they exist in dubbing. You have them. They actually do exist.
But this is a relatively new and upcoming cast members, and Sentai Filmworks had been through a reshuffling of the decks, and a lot of the voice actors had left too. So, just because of various things, but I can't fault them for that. I mean, everybody on the dub is good. It is a good dub if you want to watch it, and if you feel like, unless you want to pick apart the accents piece by piece. I as an American didn't find anything odd.
The only thing is that basically there's not really a lot of information upon any of the people in the dubs, because as I said, these are largely, lesser known voice actors, and I don't think the dub was done that long ago.
No, it wasn't.
No. The two voice actors for this who actually have a Wikipedia page are let's have a look here. David Wald, who voices the Duke of Normandy, L, who is the main handler of the group, and Jay Hickman, who voices the Duke of Normandy. They're mostly bit part voice actors. There's a couple of things that they're both famous for, but the dub was done in 2018, so it's not that long ago.
No, and it's fine. It's good. So, I mean, it's just, if you're watching something that takes place in London and you feel they should be speaking English, it's not quite where Victorian Romance Emma, where they legit did a Kickstart funder just to make sure they had a genuine British dub of Emma, but it's good. It's for what they had and what I expect from sometimes from Sentai and ADV. It is a lot better than that. I mean, not to say that Sentai is bad. It's just when they do, they usually stick to stuff like when they did. I'm trying. Gosh, there was a series that takes place in France during the Revolution.
Oh, Chevalier d'Eon?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one. They did no accents. There were absolutely no French accents allowed on that, and it was by Stephen Foster, and it turned out well. I am not
Yeah.
saying the people who do it are bad or any of that. I am surprised on how good a lot of the voice acting is on a lot of these things. It's just when when they do something special, sometimes it misfires on them.
Yeah.
So this one doesn't misfire.
Yeah, it's a solid dub. It's a solid dub.
Okay.
Where were we? Oh, yes.
We
Chisei.
were Chisei, which we get an introduction episode on her where the main assassin rival of their family is going to, or the clan is going to be in town, and they are requesting help. So they get, that's how they get into that, and then they have a really badass train fight between a band of assassins and the Control spies. Yeah. And then Chisei decides to team up with them. And so that we have our 5. And they... And
do
it's
some
a little...
really badass shit.
They do some really badass spy shit. And it's really hard to describe the action and flow of the series because the flow is fine. It is written extremely well. It is just an extremely easy series to walk away from and forget all about it because there is no lingering tension. There is no main throughway for... There is a main goal, but there's not a main plot to get to that goal. Like, obviously there's a villain, the Duke of Normandy, and he is the one who leads the royal spies, and he is a person who just does whatever needs to be done. And which was another character defecting that is one of their first assignments, and they have him like fake sick from a party, and then he's leaving, and the Duke of Normandy's coming in, who immediately recognizes what he's trying to do, and then stabs him with a pin.
Yep.
And then shouts he's been shot, and it's just like, oh, you'll be fine, you'll live, or but within the voice that silently suggests that he knows what he's doing and he's going to pay for it later.
Yeah. The Duke is an interesting villain. I almost wish there was more to him. He does just sort of float into focus whenever the series needs to go, I'm the really big bad. And the second half of the series, to a certain extent, almost does forget he's in play, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he shows up a little bit on the last 2 episodes, but then he suddenly decides, oh, I'm going to sit this one out and wait and see what happens.
No, I can't be bothered with this. Good villain, very good. I mean, when he turns up, it is really good. He's such a presence. He's very nicely designed as well, I have to say. He's like a really well designed character.
He is obviously designed to look like a villain, but not like obviously so. He is very much nobility of London. That he just happens that his nobility makes him look extremely threatening, and he is. But the problem is he is also not a main part of this. Like, I would be argued his version of the girls are so much more prominent, who is just one person. Right. I forget her name.
Gazelle.
Okay.
Who is voiced by somebody who... there's no Wikipedia page on them, but the anime list... I don't think they even have an anime list. This is unusual.
Yeah.
She's cool. She's actually, she's like... interesting character, well fleshed out. Actually, more of a threat a lot of the time than the Duke tends to be.
Yeah, because she's actually out there doing the Duke's dirty work because
Mm-hmm.
obviously he doesn't want things led back to him, and
Yeah.
she makes sure it doesn't for most of the time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean,
Yeah. She's voiced. Yeah.
she is only
Oh.
revealed by the uh, kindness of one beggar girl who Ange
Mm.
helps,
Mm. Yeah.
and
She's
then
voiced by Yuko Ida, who basically this is by far and away her most famous role, and probably will be going forward.
yeah,
Given there are 6 films of this coming up.
yeah, and some have been released, some have not, and Melanie Burke played her,
Mm.
and it's another name I don't recognize, and it's probably a lot
No.
of so
Mm.
so it, like I said, it's very hard to describe the throughway because like we can't go. You can go episode through episode with this, but I don't know how
Mm.
much good that would do. It's just like I don't know. Like I said, it's like
Mm-hmm.
a standard TV show where you would get an episode that centers on this one character. Like you would get, like on the A Team, there would be an episode getting to the heart of what makes BJ Baraka, the Mr. T
Yeah.
character, tick, and it would show that he has a human person, and he might have somebody who likes him and he might be dating later, but the next episode
Yeah.
it doesn't have any emotional resonance on what happens. There is
Mm.
like plot resonance on what happens. Like everything is kind of important to the plot because as everybody figures out who is who and who's working through what. But
Mm.
like there will be major turns to a character, and then the next episode they're just doing the same thing.
Mm.
It
Yeah,
so
like
it's
there's at least one. I mean, put it like this: um, the three characters with deadbeat parents, by the end of their episode with respective deadbeat parent is dead,
yes.
and then they carry on.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be an extremely sad moment, and there's
Mm.
this moment where they're waiting for him at the pub, and they're just having fun, they're chatting, and kind of making jokes
Yeah.
about what a bad parent he is and stuff like that, and then it's cross cut with pictures of him being dragged through the morgue.
Yeah. It's like, and they're given this as a character. This is a character who Dorothy has. Yeah, it's not say it's just
It's
Dorothy's father
Dorothy.
who. Yeah.
Dorothy's father,
Uh.
because since I said it's the morgue, it already spoils that the morgue.
Mm.
It's the one where they have to figure out a clue through the morgue, and
Mm.
the only person who can tell them what it is her father,
Mm-hmm.
who
Runs a morgue.
who is a morgue, and apparently the only people who run morgues in this version of London are people who are running away from something and just want to hang out
Yep.
with the dead rather than the living.
Yeah.
And uh, her father is that, and they kind of linger on it a little bit too much. That after some tragedy, he started violently beating Dorothy, and then
Yep.
apologizing about it later. And Dorothy just grew distant and you know away from him because obviously
Mm-hmm.
he's an abusive alcoholic shit. And
Mm.
this then there's the episode where they try to make amends and try to fix or find some kind of common ground to exist with each other, and then
Yep.
that doesn't happen, and
Nope.
it's very tragic. But then the next week they carry on.
Yeah. I don't think that's necessarily a a minus point to the series insofar that yes, it does do character development. It's like
Mm-hmm.
as you said, House may do very episodic stories, but we get development of House's character.
Yeah.
There is a sense that of course these girls are detached in some way because they are spies, because they know that basically life is cheap, and it
Mm-hmm.
does sort of and it's sort of they go through friendships. At one point, they end up working at a laundry mill, and then it's like, well, we've made so many friends. We basically taught these girls stuff like, bye.
Bye. Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah.
What it kind of reminds me of, and why people were like more concerned about why didn't you just do a second season, is that it feels like the first season of Full Metal Alchemist, where they go through all of these things that are that feel unconnected, but the second half of the original Full Metal Alchemist series connects them all together, and then you go back and like, wow, that's amazing.
That's really good writing. Yeah,
that's really good writing. But we aren't at that point, and they're giving us movies instead, and we don't. I'm not sure. We're not quite sure how the movies are going to work, and they're coming out one at a time, and they're releasing them one at a time instead of just doing another series. But
yeah, and the production time on them is, I think there are a mooted 6. I think we are on one second. These films are like under the collective title of Crown Handler. No Crown Handler, you. And we've had
3.
1 second. We've had 2 apparently, according to.
Oh well, 2. Yeah. A third is coming out in April. So.
In April, very shortly.
Yes.
I mean yes. I mean they're basically coming out every. I mean, part 1 and part 2 came out 6 months apart from each other. So, I mean the animation on this is high quality.
Yeah.
But as
especially the first episode, as you would expect, because they want to draw you in. But the first episode is especially detailed. They make a great use of the atmosphere, and they do the setting extremely well. And the rest of the series, it isn't at that high a quality, and it's brighter. It doesn't use the night as much, but it does maintain a high quality overall. Like, I had few complaints about, anything watching this series.
Yeah, I mean, it is a very good series. I mean,
yeah,
I liked this. I mean, the first episode is a bit of a culture shock. I mean, I feel like it almost, if it had a more stereotypically sort of spy sort of style title, and not something as cutesy as Princess Principal, I don't think it would be, that first episode would be as effective. It almost sort of wrong foots you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the big complaint about the movies is that they are mini movies. The first one is 54 minutes, so it counts as a movie for anime people, but it doesn't really count as a movie for us. And the second one is 56 minutes, so all these are running like an hour. And I don't know if I don't know if the delay on the third one is if they're gonna do like Garden of Sinners and make like the fifth movie, which is like 2.5 hours long, after the rest of them were 30 minutes to an hour. But so I don't know if they're they're winding up for their big movie, but it's it's not the ideal way to continue a series if you're but I don't know if that's just the way they had to do it or not.
Yeah. I mean, it's surprising. I mean, on that topic, that's not unusual for an anime film to be that length. I mean, if you remember way back, the Mamoru Hosoda Digimon film, Digimon War Game, is about an hour long, and it's like, but just think how many screenings we can get of it a day.
Which is why the American Digimon movie had to be 3 different movies squashed together.
Four.
I'm sorry.
One day we're gonna do it, Joe. One day.
Oh dear goodness. I would prefer talking Digimon over Pokemon, but not by much. Because then we'd have to discuss Tamers and
oh god.
And a 9/11 truther who was the writer. And also he made a couple of my favorite things, and I'm retroactively But
we'll get to that if we ever
another
talk
story
about
for another day.
Because hey, it's like Princess of all time. No, I like this. I mean, shall we get into spoilers? I think because we've been talking now for nearly 50 minutes, and okay, so Angie is not Angie, and Charlotte is not Charlotte.
Yep. The reason why Ange feels like she's the main character is because she is the princess.
Yeah.
When they were younger, they looked at Charlotte and Ange looked exactly like each other, and so much so they dressed like each other, and then spent a day, as themselves. And while and Ange was fine, Charlotte got badly beaten by whoever was the person taking the pickpocket money, and claimed she slacked off for the day. But
Indeed.
the moment they came back together, the revolution happened, and
they're now stuck on the wrong side of the wall, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Ange has now got to be, essentially now lives on her wits. As I say, that is the one. This is going to sound bad, but this is the one place I feel where the series needed to flesh it out. Because it's like that's a hell of a jump to go from princess who probably learns all these languages and this and that to okay, now you're living on your wits as a pickpocket.
Mm-hmm.
It does that very cleverly through a figure called Julie who appears in this episode, who is sort of like, yeah, this is Ange like 15 years ago, and things get better ish.
Yeah, it's somebody from the farm that they are suspecting is a traitor, and it turns out she is, but it's and then they make the wrong assumptions, which I think is a good character thing. There was a lot of good character stuff through these few episodes when they explain it, because Ange thinks that the traitor is jealous of her because Ange was always number one and she was number two. No, she was jealous of Dorothy because Dorothy was the only person who showed her fun in life. She didn't want to do this, but she had to. And Dorothy was the only one who was like, okay, you don't have to do this. We lost the target. Let's go slack off. They're not going to care.
Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side of that switch, it's like Charlotte, who was originally Ange, and Ange was originally Charlotte. This is yeah, they basically swap names and swap identity. Yeah, Ange, who used to be Charlotte, who used to be Ange, obviously Angie has now got to learn to be a princess and in the mother of all high wire acts, because it's like, you are illiterate. Here, learn all of these languages and how to play the piano. If you mess it up, you're going to the gallows.
Yeah. She has to learn to be perfect after being a pickpocket on the street who failed quite a lot.
Yeah.
Enough that she had scratches on her arms.
Yeah. God, I love these two characters.
Yeah, and it's just, and their admiration and their friendship is that they never really hated each other. They never really despised anything because things went wrong. They just came back, and there's like a light inside of them that only exists when they are together. And they have a huge admiration of each other that you can only see. And I especially like when they're talking for each other and saying how far they've come. And she's doing a piano recital, and they're doing a piano recital of the closing. And the closing is just actually an unusually fun one.
It did remind me of the two AEDs it did remind me of is the one, ironically enough, for Kurish's CG Black Butler, which sort of has that sort of same. This is a really dark series with a really upbeat and happy ED.
Yeah.
And Black Cat. Which also has a very upbeat AD. It's like, hey, we've just finish, having the main character have horrible things happen to them. It's time for upbeat chibi time.
Yeah, and what it reminded me of is actually Final Fantasy Theatrhythm, because the characters move like that, because it's very like puppet, but it's very like it feels like patchwork, or it's but it's they Yuki Kajiura took the fun thing and made it just ultra like sad and resonant, and it's like this is actually this it makes it a real adds to the moment so well. And I'm a huge Yuki Kajiura fan. I'm sure you are too.
Same.
Like,
yeah, I mean, the Madoka the Madoka soundtrack is still so damn good.
Yeah, and I was with that before. I mean, the only reason I went through B Train's catalog is because of Yuki Kajiura's music. I'm just like, okay, I need to see the shows that went with the music, and I got the information I wanted and found some good series, but mostly I just got the information I wanted.
Yeah.
But
it's good. Her music is she never like brings anything other than her A game.
Yeah, except for Eat Man, which is her first one when she was a music programmer, and it was that show probably had a budget of $10, and all she did was she turned on a certain sample set of her keyboard, and I can't remember what the keyboard was because I had the same sample set, and I remember playing it in my 8th grade electronic music class. But you would play like 3 notes of it, because it would just run the sample and like do 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 do. And I was just like, I know that. I know this. I know what you're doing, and I know what this is from. But that it was kind of one of her first jobs as a composer, so I'm not going to blame her. And everybody didn't have money on that one, and she eventually grew to become an amazing composer who just keeps adding and adding. She has the same sound, and you can mostly tell when a Yuki Kajiura soundtrack is a Yuki Kajiura, especially during the action pieces, because then the strings will pick up, and then there will be that pulsing beat. But she will always add something, like whether it's like rock guitar from Sword Art Online, or she'll add like the vibraphone or xylophone. I'm too far removed as a percussionist to tell the difference between the two, but but yeah, she keeps adding stuff to her standard sound and texture, so it's and it's a extremely good. It's not a standout one, but I bought the 2-disc soundtrack off of iTunes, and all of it is extremely solid.
Cool. So Angie is Charlotte, and Charlotte is Angie, and I the other episode I really do like is the one that sort of fleshes out Chisei a fair bit. It's like she's not just, hey, I'm the Japanese member of the team, because
because it actually gets into like living, how do they live their daily lives, and it kind of does it in a stereotypical anime fashion, where she kind of either is reporting or is making a diary to herself, or the diplomats.
Writing a letter to her sister, I think it was.
Oh yeah, it's a letter to her sister. Like I said, it's easy for the details of this series to escape you, because it's the emotional throughway is not nailed down. It's there, and you understand everybody. And it's an extremely good series, but it's something you can pack up and leave when it's done. So I think that's the one thing that makes it not special, is that I don't want to say disposable. It is not a disposable series. It is extremely good, and the people who have it as one of their favorites have it for their favorites for good reasons. It's an extremely good-looking show. We really like the characters, especially Ange. It sounds good, and
looks good.
Looks good. Flows well, even if it's not why the storylines why we love anime is because they're the serialized ones that just, and you can always feel the tension and the history of the people as they go through it and interact with each other. And that, but that just because that one doesn't mean this isn't somebody's favorite. And it has a lot of good reasons to be somebody's favorite because it's very good. But anyway, yeah, Chise is doing a diary to her, or letter to her sister, and writing about how weird Americans are, and like why they don't have beds on the floor, and how they eat, and how she is not very good at English, and they actually have like a Japanese show correcting a Japanese character's English.
It was in Japanese. Like how it was.
Yeah. I watched the dub in this one, so she does speak some Japanese in the show just to differentiate this. Like when they did,
probably
yeah. So
that's the best way of working around it, I think. I mean, it almost like I almost did want the series to do, sort of like the opposite thing is like to differentiate her from the English character. She speaks English, and obviously they can't understand her. But I obviously that would be perhaps a little bit too much pressure on on the voice actor. That's fine. I appreciate
no.
it. Like that's an extreme stylistic choice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that sort of fleshes her out. She engages in a duel with rather stereotypical bullies. She by the way,
she learns how to challenge somebody to a duel, and Charlotte was like, can we come away and talk about this? And it's not that she wants to stop the duel, not at all. She just has to explain to Chise all the things you need for a duel. You need a doctor, you need a witness, you need rules, and
guns.
And guns, and
yeah. I mean, my annoying. The only thing I would have said about that, and this is again me being very subjective, is like, I would have fucking loved it if she just pulled out a fucking katana and just like, it's like, I read it. Oh, I see. This is how you duel in Japan. Yeah, it's again, it's sort of like it's a little bit of character building. And oh, by the way, they've used this as a distraction because inevitably one of their classmates is in fact working for the Duke of Normandy.
Yes.
Which makes you generally wonder about what the state of France is like in Princess Principal. It's like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Normandy isn't part of France.
France. Yeah.
Or
and
Normandy is part of France.
And there are some, French in this. Like, Ange is gives her full name and she's French. So, but everything about this is in Albion, this country of Albion, and they have it, and also the bad guys are French because of course they're French in an English show.
Yeah, of course they are. I mean, again, remember this is the same guy who did Code Geass, a series where it goes, but what if America was still part of the Commonwealth, and Japan was part of the Commonwealth, and and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean I hesitate to mark down the world building on this. The world building is background to these character-driven moments, particularly between Ange and Charlotte.
I mean, I think it would be a great series if everything wove into each other as much, but it is more a background and an excuse to make really cool steampunk costumes and do really cool shit.
Yeah, like the costume design in this is also really, really good. Like Ange's main outfit is just very cool. It's like, yeah, this is like, this is a series where it goes, this is actually how, teenage girls in steampunk 1920s-ish would dress, sure.
Yeah, it kind of makes her look like cool teenage Jack the Ripper, somewhat. I mean, except without like, oh, she's not going to murder you unless you're a traitor. Then she will absolutely shoot you.
Yeah. that's on me. I mean,
Yeah.
a flipping name is John LeCarre, so it's like, okay, they know what
Yeah.
they're doing here.
Absolutely, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Um. The ending of this is, I feel, where it starts to lose itself a little bit. The
Mm-hmm.
last 2 episodes of this are,
Like,
if
well, it feels like an excuse to have a final conflict in this series that they know they're not wrapping up here.
yeah,
So it's basically the military has taken over control, um, and they're planning a coup to tear down the wall for the Commonwealth, and that involves assassinating the Queen. And they want, and Control gives orders to the rest of the spies to kill Charlotte, which they absolutely do not do, and absolutely have no
nope,
plans of doing. So that through a whole bunch of just super contrived stuff, because I don't know, this is where the world building not doing its job comes in, because we know there's tension between Elle and the military, but it's like it doesn't come to a the plotting doesn't make it feel like it comes to a pass right here. Elle's just gone, and they're ordered to kill the princess
yeah,
as a plot twist to the end of episode 10.
yeah. You know, the
And,
same
and
episode in which they go, yeah, sure, we were totally ready to kill a former friend. It's like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But the worst part of like episode 10 is like she kills herself, and they like show what remains. Like they have no qualms showing what is left of the people after
yeah.
they've been blown
Oh,
apart, and
sure.
it's just like that it is really jarring for a series that usually keeps it close to the vest as far as that kind of thing. Like they only do that kind of violence when absolutely necessary, or to just make a visual point. And
Mm.
that is certainly a very visual point. So
Yeah, it is a series which does not shy away from quite I mean, not never gratuitous violence, but you know, the sort of thing where, you know, if this was a live action thing, we're like, yeah, and say goodbye to 90% of your market.
yeah.
This would be like hard R rated violence
Mhm.
if it was live action.
Yeah, but there's like 3 or 4 bursts of it, so it's not terrible.
Mm.
It's
No.
just like there are some things that are upsetting just because it is, you know, it is, we see these people being kind to each other, we see these people be nice to each other, and you know, nice to their some of their targets too, to a certain extent. And then just when it goes bad, it goes bad. Uh,
It goes south very quickly and brutally. Yeah.
but
The last 2 episodes of this are, yeah, I feel if this hadn't had the film immediately sort of hanging, I mean, this series ends on like 2017. The films were announced like 6 months later, and were pretty much, and it
mhm,
pretty much picks up immediately after the series. So I feel like they went, do you know what? We could actually do this better as 6 films rather than, you know, another series or another 2 series. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But it's like, you know, the problem is because there is an immediate sense of, uh, we can just go straight into these films. You know, there has to be some, you know,
yeah,
narrative peak, but it's obviously like, no, we can't do anything too drastic to the you know, the layout or the, you know, the geography of this series, so to speak, because, you know,
yeah.
we're doing a film in 6 months.
And the big problem is that they have the villain and their handy person already set up, but because the goal of these 2 episodes are antithetical to what the Duke of Normandy wants to keep the royalty. He just wants to,
Mm,
you know, be the puppeteer of it.
yeah.
But the opposite end, they have. they want to break down the walls and join have the Commonwealth and the royalty join back together again. That's what the military wants to do and join the
Yeah.
Commonwealth. But so they have to bring in two newer characters,
Yep.
and that we've never met before, and they they have to quickly make them. And I mean, they do to a certain extent, like Zelda, who is the person who has to make sure take over control and make sure they're doing all of this stuff and not sending secret messages to each other, is very effective. The military guy who takes L's spot is just a military guy, and they're
Yeah, he's just.
like,
I think the most interesting thing about him is he basically chomps his way through a cigar like every so often. It's like
yeah.
that's it. He's just a big fat military guy, and it's like I've seen so many anime with just this one style of military guy. He would just like, I'm a military guy. I'm in a uniform. I'm smoking cigars. I have, I will get outfoxed by the protagonists at like within 5 to 10 minutes. I'm setting my watch now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, so they have that conflict, and you. And one thing about this series is you kind of always are one step ahead of where it's going. Like maybe
Mm.
not, you don't know exactly what's going to happen in the episode um, from the get go, but you know, if you're 2/3 of the way through, you kind of know how an episode's going to end. You kind of know what
Mm.
they're going to do, and um, there there was only like one moment where um, and just trying to get Charlotte to Casablanca. I need to mention this because it's one of the funniest damn things in the series. Like, they want to go live in a White House in Casablanca.
Mm.
Casablanca means White House.
Yeah. Play
So,
it again, Joe.
but anyway, but
No more of that. We can't do it. We copyright.
but yeah, that's just a funny detail. I don't know if they realized that and they realized it and they didn't realize how recognizable of a pun it would be to
Yeah.
Western people because it was made for a Japanese audience. But
Yeah.
so
Anyway.
there's an airship conveniently going to Casablanca, and Ange's quest is to lock Charlotte there and send her off so she doesn't die. And then instead, Charlotte throws Ange in because stop insulting my intelligence. You know who I have done so much work to get here, and I'm not going to be stopped and scared away now. So she just tosses and locks Ange in. And obviously, Ange, being the resourceful spy that she is, gets out. And, kind of everybody knows this is going to come back together. And it's all about. And when they get back together, it's just like, why didn't you just ask for help? And everybody realizes, how ridiculous they were. I mean, that is some good character moments in that. When
Yeah.
they realize, like, we're so far off, we're not trusting each other, even though we are each other's best friends and we know each other. Okay, let's just drop this off and pick up new.
Yeah.
And so they do. And then this year, I hesitated to call an ending, but they resolve the conflict. But Zelda
Yeah.
disappears in the shadows to appear later, and L returns with the military guy, but he's not out. So
Yeah.
this all is to be continued and picked up on another day. So it's not like satisfying as an ending like, say, Eden of the East is, where it has an amazing ending, but it's obviously going to continue.
Yeah. And I feel that is the series' weakest point, because it is already looking over that horizon and going, we're doing something else over here, whether it's going to be a second series or not. I mean, I frankly, and this is going to sound really cynical, if I was the people who made this series, I would put another episode in the running order, and I would make the cliffhanger of episode 11 the end of this series.
Mm.
I would literally leave it on a cliffhanger and going, all the pieces are in place. Anjay
Yeah.
is stuck in the hold. Charlotte has basically gone to Zelda, basically masquerading as Angie, as Charlotte. How are our heroines going to get out of this? Well, you'll have to wait. You'll have to wait a year and a bit, because that'll be season 2. That's just me. That is how I would plot it.
Yeah.
And it just sort of ends on a very low stakes, sort of like everything's sorted, but our main villain is sort of still out there, and our second villain is also out there and is just basically gone. Lol, nope.
Yeah.
And the Duke sort of vaguely thinks the princess might have something to do with this, but isn't really acting on it yet. It's a bit of an anticlimax.
It's a bit of an anticlimax, and it's like the things aren't threaded in a way that come together. But this is meant to be incomplete, so which is because they wanted to do more. It just it could have. Yeah, it could have been done better, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, that's kind of where, I figured out my weird thing with the series. It's just like that. I think it's an extremely good series. I like most everything about this series. But I can walk away from it. I can forget about it. And, after a day later after I watch an episode, I forget most of the details, obviously, if you've heard me talking about this for an hour. Yeah. Also, we both didn't get a lot of sleep last night.
Yeah.
But it's still extremely good.
Coffee and malice. Yeah, I mean,
everybody
like this series. I like the feel of it. I like the animation. I mean, this is good. I don't know. I might watch the films at some point. I can guarantee, Garden of Sinners, it will get some nice bespoke box set at some point with the dub. Where it's. I think the films have already been.
It's going through Sentai, so they are releasing the movies one at a time. But if you wait for their Sentai sales, you can get pretty well discounted DVDs.
Do they exist in the UK, Joe?
Oh no, they don't. I'm sorry.
It's MVM, I think, in the UK, which are okay, but again, bit on the There's Sentai and MVM sort of, I guess, sort of take the same sort of role in their respective markets, in that they're not the budget, but they are sort of they tend to go off. They tend to license the sort of more esoteric and more interesting, and basically the stuff that nobody else will pick up.
Yeah. And Sentai kind of does that too, but they will eventually have sales where you can buy it for $5.
Yeah. Go buy this series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. I like this. There is a charm to this series. I really like the heroines of this series. I just wish that sort of parts of it lived up to the sort of the high bar of the first episode.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, it's just missing some connecting pieces to become special. It doesn't have the connecting tissues that most special series have. If you watch the first half of, it's like watching the first half of Full Metal Alchemist, and it's good, but I don't see why it's special. And then you get to the second half, it's holy shit! Oh yeah, dear God! And they're but that also has the issue with, and I'm talking about the original series, not Brotherhood, because I haven't watched Brotherhood, because the first 15 episodes of Brotherhood is just fast forwarding through the original series plot line, and they don't do it very well, so I never get to that point. But there's everybody else is yeah
exactly. It's good.
Okay.
In places it's great. But I don't think it's a series I would necessarily have watched without it being on the podcast, but that's why we do this.
Yep. Half are my favorite series of all time, and half are I need to get my Sentai Filmworks stuff off my shelf.
Yeah, it's like, come on. Joe needs some shelf space at some point.
Yeah.
Cool. So, that was Princess Principal. Joe, what are we doing next?
Well, are we doing my music thing next, but no, we got to do the next.
No, okay. The next thing. So, let us just go through this. So, as you're aware, if you're a long-time listener / viewer, we do episodes on music anniversaries. We might do episodes on anime anniversaries at some point. I don't know. We'll get to that point. We'll get to that point, won't we, Joe? I'm trying to think of anything we can actually think of that will immediately have an anniversary coming up. But I mean, we are getting to some of the big series now, sort of getting to.
Yeah, we're getting to the 20th anniversary of the anime Gold Rush.
Yeah, we're going to be shortly wading into. We may do stuff that we wouldn't normally talk about on the show, like the big long runners, because we might go fuck it. I mean, fuck it. I think One Piece is coming up to 25 years. We might do that at some point. We might do. But not all of One Piece.
No.
No. We might do some. Anyway, we'll do some anime that are coming up to the 20-25 year mark. We don't know yet. Well, this is very much up in the air. What isn't up in the air is we're doing some music episodes this year, which are all things coming up to particular anniversaries. Should we reveal all of them now, Joel? Should we just reveal the first one?
Let's reveal the first one because it is coming up soon.
Yeah, so we will be releasing on the 1st of March, on its 50th anniversary, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd.
Yep. With a special guest, which hopefully a special guest, but they haven't checked in on our Discord yet. But they have a job, so we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We'll be talking about Dark Side of the Moon potentially with a special guest. We will be doing other albums later in the year. Or more will be revealed as we go along. But Joe, on the topic of music, what are we talking about on the next numbered episode of the Thom and Joe show?
The next number episode, we will be talking about the Midnight's Endless Summer.
Ooh.
Yeah, I thought that's what we had. Yeah,
we are indeed. Yes, we are indeed. Are we going to reveal the next anime episode? Because I believe it's
your choice. It's your choice. So go ahead.
We're doing on the topic of homicidal little girls. We're doing Tanya the Evil. Saga of Tanya the Evil, which is interesting and dark, and might be the first and only time we do a I've forgotten the word. What's the flipping thing?
Is it isekai?
We'll be doing an isekai. Oh god.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
It's sort of an isekai anime, yeah. So we'll be doing the Saga of Tanya the Evil, which I have been looking forward to doing it for some time, although I'm intrigued what your opinion will be of it, Joe.
Yeah, all I know is it's the little Hitler girl anime series. But I know there's more to it than that, but that's what I know it for.
Yeah, so obviously, if you want to catch these episodes early, if you want to commission an episode, we do that, don't we, Joe?
Yes.
We can be found on Patreon at patreon.com/the Thom and Joe show. Thom is spelt with a H. We can be found on Twitter at whilst it still survives at not so final prod. Joe, are we going to talk a little bit more before we go about the top secret project? Which I believe we can now talk about.
A little bit.
A little bit.
You might see me in person on
Yep.
video before these episodes. So,
Yep, absolutely.
um,
I might do a video for said. So we are going to be talking about, if you remember, if you cast your mind back to 2020, the first year of this podcast. This was a very long time ago these days. We did all of the James Bond films.
yeah,
This December, we'll be talking about the entirety of another iconic media work. Joe, what will we be talking about in full?
Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Yep, every single episode, every single movie. We may go mad in the process, but it'll be worth it.
I'm not doing the dating sims.
We're not doing the no. I mean,
Or the
we're doing the
Shinji
anime.
raising sims.
We're doing the anime. We're doing
Yes.
everything animated. We're not going to start. I mean, if we started talking about all the manga spin-offs and the chibi spin-off animated series that was on the internet, we would be here until like mid-January, even if we did an episode every 2 days.
And half
Evangelion is
dead.
big. Evangelion is big. So, until next time, I've been Tom.
I've been Joe. Actually,
And
I've
it's been
not
the Tom
been
and Joe
Joe.
show.
I've been Tom this whole time. I've
Oh
been
my god,
Tom. I'm
I've
actually
been,
Tom.
I'm Joe, apparently. Till next
We've
time.
been lying to you this whole time.
For the Black Lizard Planet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I repeat in my soul, worshipping a black tea, and now gently touching a tree. Call me hurrying from the sky, can free me, I feel like I'm getting so close to life with me, with everything going on. Sunday morning, the light has gone, and looking up high, vanished worries, the light has gone. I'm going to try for a pleasant night, just a page of life in my story, sweet and bright.